Everyone has that one ancestor who feels like a ghost. The records hint at a life, a name with 3 or 4 spellings, and then nothing. Today's video is about turning that kind of brick wall into a concrete research plan using a viewer's comment about Jane Kilbourne, who came out of nowhere and then disappeared into nowhere as our case study. To a professional genealogist or family historian, brick wall women with constantly shifting surnames they're not the exception, but actually they're the norm. They're the cases that show up on our desk week after week, and they demand every bit of method and creativity that a researcher has. These are the women who surface briefly in a marriage record, a baptism entry, or even a census with their surname spelled 3 different ways in 4 different documents. And then they seem to vanish without leaving a neat trail back to parents or even forward to a documented death. In this episode, the focus is going to be on 2 big ideas. First, taking a historically grounded look at why someone like Jane Kilbourne, who had multiple possible spellings of her surname, is so difficult to pin down in the surviving records. How language migration, record-keeping practices, and gender all work together to obscure her story. And then second, walking through a clear step-by-step research process that you can lift and use with your own mystery ancestor, no matter what her name or time period, so you can then move from she came out of nowhere toward a carefully reasoned, evidence-based identity. Now, join us as we look at 7 key steps as we answer this answers question today on Trace Your New England Roots. Hello, my friends. Welcome back. I wish to thank the viewer who posted her comment to a recent video which discussed how a researcher was able to break a 100-year-old family mystery after just having a discussion with an elderly relative during a holiday celebration. This broke a 10-year brick wall. The viewer commented that her dead-end's name was Jane Kilbourne, spelled alternatively as Kilbourne, or Kilburn, or Kilbourne with an E, or Kilbourne, and that she came out of nowhere and then disappeared into nowhere. This poses a frequent challenge to any genealogist or family historian. And in answer to this viewer's comment, I thought this would be an excellent case study to share with our community. Here at Trace Your New England Roots. First, it helps to understand why someone like Jane is difficult. The Kilbourne surname traces back to places called Kilburn or Kilbourne in England, and by the 17th century there were established Kilbourne families in counties like Middlesex, Yorkshire, and Derbyshire, some of whom then later migrated to New England and other North American colonies. Once in the colonies, the name appears in a tangle of spellings, sometimes even with a single family group. And then on top of that, women in many time periods only appear in records primarily when they marry, bear children, or die, and their identity is often filtered through the men around them. That combination, variable surname plus sparse documentation for women, makes a Jane Kilburn, no matter how it is spelled, feel like she materializes in one record set and then vanishes, even though she was part of a broader family and community. Let's now look at the 7 key steps that we can use in our strategy to solve this. Step 1, define a precise research question. The first step in breaking this wall is to turn Jane came from nowhere into a tight, answerable research question. Instead of asking, who is Jane? Ask something like, who were the parents of Jane Kilburn? Who married John Smith in X town in Y year and appears as the mother of these named children? Or, from which locality did Jane Kilburn residing in X county before 1840 and 1860 likely originate? This aligns with standard brick wall methodology. Cluster research and other advanced strategies only work well when there is a clear target question and a time and space frame. And once the question is tight, identify what kinds of records might reasonably answer it. These could be church records, civil registrations, land and probate records, local histories, or DNA matches. And remember, the golden rule of genealogy is always start with what you know. We start by listing everything that we know to be true, and then we work backwards. Step 2, reconstruct every record about Jane. Do this next. Gather everything that directly names Jane under any spelling, whether it be Kilburn, Kilburn, you get the idea. Any plausible phonetic variant. Historical surname studies and one-name projects note that these spellings are in fact interchangeable in many lines, especially in colonial and early American contexts. Search across all likely spellings in local church books, civil marriage registers, census schedules, deeds, probate files, tax lists, and even cemetery records. Lay these records out in strict chronological order and then transcribe them. Sometimes just seeing the full sequence of appearances and disappearances will reveal patterns, such as a gap that lines up with a probable move or a remarriage or even a death. This step is tedious, yes, but it is critical, folks, because it defines what is exactly known about Jane, not what is assumed. And then step 3, we move to build what's called a fan club, which are friends, associates, and neighbors. When the direct evidence about Jane is thin, the next move is cluster research, building her fan club of friends, associates, and neighbors. Guides on the fan principle explain that by tracking everyone who appears with your target person, witnesses to marriages, neighbors and census records, adjoining landowners, sponsors at baptisms, you can then often identify family networks and origins that the target's own records never state explicitly. For Jane Kilburn, note every surname that appears in proximity to hers in the records, and then create mini profiles for these people. Where, for example, where were they born, where they moved, who they married, which churches did they attend. If, for example, 2 of Jane's children marry into a local Kilburn family that arrived from a specific English parish, that cluster may point back to Jane's own origins, even if no record explicitly says Jane is the daughter of X Kilburn. Step 4. One name and same name studies in the area. Because Kilburn is distinctive, but yet it's not unique, it is useful to perform a mini one-name study in Jane's region and time period. Brick wall guides recommend building out all the local families with the target surname, regardless of whether they seem related or related or not. Then we sort them into clusters. Start with every Kilburn spelling variation, each individual family household, and the relevant county or region. Reconstruct their families using censuses, vital records, and probate records, and map out who is where over time. Resources on one name and cluster research note that this process often reveals that mystery person. They fit cleanly as a daughter, a niece, or a widow in one of the existing groups once age, naming patterns, and migration routes are considered. It also helps distinguish between Janes or multiple John and Jane couples so that you don't accidentally merge different women into one. Step 5. Use DNA as supporting evidence. For many modern brick walls, especially involving women whose maiden names or parents are unknown, DNA can provide essential supporting evidence. Case studies on breaking female ancestor brick walls describe using autosomal DNA to identify clusters of matches who all descend from a particular family or locality, and then building trees for those matches to see where the lines converge. In a Jane Kilburn problem, you might identify a cluster of DNA matches who all have documented Kilburn ancestors from a specific county in New England or from an English parish associated with this surname. That pattern does not prove Jane's parents by itself, but combined with the paper trail, cluster research, one name study, and local records can support a carefully written conclusion about her likely origins, or at the very least narrow the field to 1 or 2 people families. Step 6. Re-evaluate negative and indirect evidence. Another key technique emphasized in brick wall training is to treat the absence of records and indirect references as evidence in their own right. For example, if no marriage record for Jane survives in the parish where her children were baptized, but there is a civil marriage license in the neighboring county for a Jane Kilburn to the same husband shortly before the first child's birth, then that becomes strong indirect evidence of identity. Similarly, in the same way, if you can rule out every other Jane Kilburn in the broader region through the same name rule out method, some experts they teach that you may be left with a single plausible candidate for your Jane's birth family. Carefully noting which records you expected to find but you didn't, and which alternative Janes can be eliminated, it does turn vague frustration into a structured argument. And then finally, step 7, write a reasoned, documented conclusion. So finally, once you have collected, correlated, and weighed all the direct, indirect, and negative evidence, write up a reasoned conclusion following genealogical standards. Brick wall blueprints and fan research guides stress that assembling the answer in your head it's just simply not enough. The process of writing forces you to confront conflicts, identify gaps, and assumptions for Jane Kilburn that might mean stating something like, while no record explicitly names Jane's parents, the convergence of her residence, the presence of only one Kilburn family of the right age in the right spot, the right area, the DNA matches pointing to that family's descendants, and the lack of any competing candidate together with all of this supports the conclusion that she was probably the daughter of a particular couple. Even if the result is a probable rather than proven, key here, even if it's the result is probable rather than proven identification, the documentation lets other researchers evaluate and then build on the work instead of inheriting a vague came from nowhere story. Let's kind of digest this. So we turned a comment like Jane Kilburn came out of nowhere and disappeared into nowhere into a plan. And this is about shifting from emotion to method, understanding the historical context of the Kilburn surname shows that the variation in spelling is expected. It's not a dead end. By applying the fan club cluster research, one name studies, DNA correlation, and careful attention to indirect and negative evidence reflects the same strategies how experts outline for their most challenging brick wall problems. For your own Jane, the goal is to stop thinking of her as a ghost and instead treat her as the center of a network you can map and measure, so that over time that discouraged sigh turns into a documented, shareable hypothesis about who she really was and where she came from. If you found this helpful and you want to learn even more, be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell. In our next video for this series, we're going to get into more advanced prompting techniques for very specific record sets. Thanks for watching. Now go turn on your new research assistant and get ready to break down some walls, and happy researching. Until next time, this is Eric with Trace Your New England Roots, where history starts with your family.